Jason Dean, Chairman of the Mississippi Board of Education, present in Madison, Mississippi. This meeting of the Board of Education is being held today, Thursday, April 16th, 2020 at 10 a.m. via teleconference pursuant to Mississippi Code annotated section 2541.5. Notice of this meeting was posted in accordance with state law and included the date, time, place, and purpose of the meeting and identified location of the meeting available to the public. An audio recording is being made of this meeting and minutes of the meeting will be recorded. This meeting is also being live streamed via YouTube. Dr. Carrie Wright is present also in Madison, Mississippi to participate in this teleconference meeting. I'll now move for the announcement of a quorum. As I call your name, please state the location and just do city and state for the presence for purposes of quorum. Mrs. Rosemary Altman.
Here, I'm in Clinton, Mississippi.
Mr. Buddy Bailey.
Here, I'm in Brandon, Mississippi.
Miss Nancy Collins. Dr. Karen Elam.
Here in Oxford, Mississippi.
Dr. John Kelly.
Here, Gulfport, Mississippi.
Mr. Sean, I'm sorry, pardon me, Mrs. Brittany Rye.
Present here in Starkville, Mississippi.
Mr. Sean Suggs.
Here, Blue Springs, Mississippi.
Miss Shelby Dean.
Present in Clinton, Mississippi.
Mr. Omar Jamil.
Present in Hernando, Mississippi.
A quorum of the board is present at the location stated for the purpose of conducting the meeting through teleconference means. The April 16th, 2020 board meeting is now called to order at 10:03 a.m. Since this is a teleconference meeting, please identify yourself when asking questions, making comments, or making motions.
Dr. Dean,
Yes.
Nancy Collins is here. She may have just been on mute, but
Okay.
she is here.
Okay, let the minutes reflect Mrs. Nancy Collins is present and state your location, please. We're going to put an asterisk that she's in Tupelo, Mississippi, unless we.
Tupelo, Mississippi.
There you
I'm
go.
here.
Okay. Yeah, and that's a good point. If you're not talking, if you can, just hit the mute button because there's some echo and background unnecessary chatter. So that's good, please. But obviously, if you have something to say, remember to unmute. Otherwise, your brilliant comment would be lost for eternity. I have asked Ms. Rye to do our invocation, and I have found an American flag, and I will lead us in the pledge. There it is right there. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Okay, if you'll please bow your heads, let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we are just so thankful for today, and we are just so thankful, Lord, and at these uncertain times, Lord, that we can come to you and confident of who you are and that you are still in control, Lord, and that you are still certain in these times. Lord, we just want to thank you for all the people, Lord, that are still out there each and every day that are being able to provide for our needs, especially those that are fighting this virus, those that are the medical workers, Lord, that are in this every day. Lord, just pray that you would put a hedge of protection around them, give them the strength, Lord, as they continue to do this each and every day. Lord, I just thank you for those at MDE, Lord, that have just each and every day gone in and continue to chart these unknown waters, Lord, as we are trying to make decisions, Lord, that will best meet the needs of our students and our teachers and the educators. Be with the educators, Lord, as they too are facing these unknown times and doing the best they can to reach their students, to help them to learn, Lord, and pray, Lord, as a board that we can come to you, Lord, and make these decisions that would bring you honor and glory. In your precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that very much. Okay, you should have in front of you the minutes, not only from the regular March 19th board meeting, but the March 26th special call meeting as well. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Mr. Chairman, John Kelly, I move approval.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Rosemary, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hear none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next, we'll move to the approval of the agenda. You have the agenda before you. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? If so, I'll entertain a motion to do so now. Are there any items on the consent agenda that members would like to pull out for discussion? If so, I'll entertain a motion to do so now. Hearing none, we need a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Karen Nealon, so moved.
Okay. Motion with the, is there a second?
Brittany Rice, second.
All right. There's a motion with the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Our agenda is formally adopted. And Dr. Wright, I'll turn it over to you to do the report of the state superintendent.
All right, thank you, and good morning to everybody. I want to start with giving a little bit of background of where we are. As you know, the governor held his press conference this week and announced that facilities would remain closed for the remainder of the year, but that learning would continue to take place. I want to start by thanking the governor for this decision. I know this was a very difficult decision for him to make. He and I, along with Dr. Dobbs, the state health officer, and Dr. Byers, the state epidemiologist, all consulted on this and to make this recommendation to the governor. So I really want to thank him for doing that. I want to say thank you so deeply to our teachers and our principals and our parents, our superintendents, folks that are out in the field each and every day trying to do their very best to provide learning experiences for their children. So from the bottom of my heart, and I know I speak for the state board and the State Department, a real heartfelt thank you for everything that you're doing to continue learning for our children. The department has been providing daily updates to the superintendents and principals and teachers. In those updates, we have included resources for them to use for online and distance learning. We have included only those that are free, number one. Number two, that we feel need a certain level of quality or rigor. We've also put some of these on our social media so that parents can have easier access to some of these resources. We have, when we get information from the Department of Ed in DC, we include that as well. And we have also provided webinars across the state. As you know, the federal government has passed the CARES Act. And in that, there are 3 buckets of monies that are going to be coming to the state. There is a bucket of money for the governor. And this is in all states. Our governor will receive about $34.6 million. And that is to be used for those districts that have suffered a real impact due to COVID educationally. We at K-12 will receive about $169.9 million. That is all formulaic driven. The formula is the one that they used for title dollars in the 1920 school year. So it's the same formula that's being generated that will be moving money to the department and from the department directly to the districts. I believe we have a 10% set aside of those funds. There's also a bucket of money for post-secondary, so they will be getting funds as well. This is one-time only money. And so we have been developing guidance documents around the best use of this money. I think all districts, particularly those that are struggling to provide distance learning, really need to be thinking very carefully about how this money should be spent. They not only have this CARES money that they have a year to spend, but they've also, and Nathan's going to talk to you in just a second about the waivers that the federal government allowed us to apply for, which gives districts more flexibility in their spending, a longer time to spend that, and also has limited caps that have previously been in place for them to purchase technology. So we have been spending, as the leadership team in the department, a lot of time together developing these documents so that we can put them in the hands of principals and teachers so that they can really do a needs assessment and then be prepared when this money arrives. This money has not arrived, and I think there was some misunderstanding in the field about that. I think when the Department of Ed announced the waivers, I think people thought that meant that the money had come, but the money is not here yet. In fact, Betsy DeVos just released the governor's money, I believe, yesterday or the day before. And so K-12 will be following behind that, and then the post-secondary will be following behind that. In the meantime, I've been trying to... Sure.
Before you leave that, once the money arrives, who decides how the monies will be spent? How would a school district go about being able to access the money?
So it's going to be distributed, Dr. Kelly, in the same manner that our Title I, II, III, $4 are sent, our IDEA money, our Perkins money. The important aspect, though, of this that we're still working on is that there is a tremendous amount of reporting responsibility back to the federal government about how this money is spent. So right now we have an application inside the department called MCAPS. I know you've heard the term, and that's where we distribute all of our title dollars, our IDEA money and our Perkins money all goes through that application. So we're working right now with the vendor to create another part of that application that will hold this CARES money by itself, because we cannot commingle this money, because this is not title dollars. This is a totally separate bucket of money. It has nothing to do with Titles 1 through 4 or Perkins or IDEA. So the department is going to, as our districts, going to be held responsible for how this money is spent. And so we've got to have the ability to track that inside the agency. Does that help?
It does. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Dr. Wright.
Sure.
This is Sean. Very quickly, 2 quick questions. You mentioned post-secondary. Is that a part of the 169?
No, sir. That is a totally different bucket of money. In fact, let me see if I can pull up that percentage.
Okay.
There is a percentage. I don't know that I see it. They're actually getting more money than we are, to be honest. I know that their percentage of the funds that they're receiving are more than the 169.9 that we're receiving.
My other quick question is, the monies that will be given must be used in a certain time frame, correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
Thank you.
And I believe it's just about a year. Now, Nathan's going to go over some of the waivers that we have applied for that will give the districts a longer period of time than normal to spend the money, and he'll talk to you about that.
Okay, thank you.
I've tried to make myself available to the media as well, so that they can, some of these programs call in firsthand or have other people that have sent in questions. So WLOX, which is down on the coast, I have been on their program twice. I've been on Paul Gallo's show twice. And as of this Friday, I will have been on MPB twice. And Nathan and Robin Lamonas were also on MPB last week. So we've been trying to make ourselves available to get as much information out to the public as we can. Upcoming, I am scheduling 3 different meetings with my Teachers Advisory Council. I think we're going to try and do this alphabetically because there's so many of them. And I'm going to give them a 2-hour span of time. And I want to really hear directly from teachers, like what they have found that's been successful, what they have struggled with, what have been some of their challenges, and also what do they wish they'd known or had, or what skill sets do they wish that they'd had prior to this, because as we've been hearing from all the national experts, we expect a resurgence of this in the fall. So we very well could be back at home in the fall. So I want to see what we can do between now and then to better prepare our teachers, so that they're not feeling kind of as flat-footed, I'm sure, as some of them felt that they were. And so I'm scheduling that. I've been in consult with my Superintendent's Advisory Council. In fact, I have another meeting with them this coming Wednesday, and they've been a great group to bounce ideas and suggestions off of. And I'm also wanting to schedule larger meetings with more superintendents across the state, and I'll do that probably in the same manner, in an alphabetical manner, so that everybody's got access to me with questions, et cetera. So I'm going to stop there because I want you to know about the waivers that we have applied for. The U.S. Department of Ed really allowed a lot more flexibility, and states could apply for certain waivers through them. We applied for all of them simply because we felt it was best to apply for all, even though we weren't sure we were going to use all, so that we wouldn't be having to go back and reapply. I've got to say that the Department of Ed made this process very easy, and so hats off to them for doing that. And also, I've got to say hats off to the Council of Chief State School Officers, because they have been working directly with USCD to make sure that these things were happening very timely. So Nathan, if you would go over the waivers that we've applied for and how that impacts our districts.
Certainly. Good morning, guys. So we've applied for two different waivers, as Dr. Wright mentioned. The first of these is connected to assessment and accountability. This deals primarily with the actions that the board took in March. This is an allowance for this school year to waive the requirements for statewide assessments to be administered, to waive requirements for accountability and school identification for school improvement, to waive report card provisions around accountability system and assessments and the other academic indicators, English language proficiency results, that broad statewide report card that we have released the last couple of years. We will not have a report card for this current year because we're not administering the assessments. That largely was addressed through the board's March action, where we took a number of items forward to you from Paula's shop regarding statewide add-in of assessments and the requirements for graduation and other kinds of components. The second waiver that we have applied for is the one that deals more with the fiscal piece of this, and I would just like to take a moment to say thank you to Quentin Ransburg and Alicia Campbell and Dr. Gavin's team and our team from Federal Programs that have been working over the last couple of weeks in and out of webinars with CCSSO and other groups. And then we put on a webinar for districts earlier this week to walk through a lot of this information. And so if you're wanting to go deep in detail, that webinar is a great place to go. But this fiscal waiver allows for a number of flexibilities. The first of those is a waiver on the 3-year carryover limitation that's under 1127B of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. Ultimately, what this does is it gives districts a little more authority to carry over more than 15% of their funds than they would usually have. Typically, districts can only do that once every 3 years. This gives them the flexibility, if needed, to carry over some funds into the upcoming year that they wouldn't typically have been able to do if they had pursued that waiver previously. This fiscal waiver also allows for federal fiscal year 18 funds to carry forward until September of 2021 rather than September of 2020. And this is for Title 1A funds, Title 1D funds, if applicable, 1003A funds, some school improvement money, Title 1 Part B, C, D, connected to migratory students, as well as students who are neglected and delinquent, Title II funds for professional development supporting effective educators, Title III funds for language enhancement programs. Typically, we see those are our English learner programs. Title IV funds for student support and enrichment. That's Title IVA. Title IVB is 21st century, and Title V is rural and low income. Particularly of interest under Title IVA, for those districts that are receiving more than $30,000 in Title IVA funds, there's not a needs assessment required for the 1920 school year. There are also some flexibilities around how those funds can be spent, and it waives the spending limitation, wherein typically only 15% of those funds could be used for technology infrastructure. There's also some flexibility around the definition of professional development within this waiver to allow districts to address the needs of their staff more broadly. And one of those needs may be connected to implementation and use of technology to deliver content to students in a remote setting. So that's the broad picture of both the accountability and the fiscal waivers we've applied for. Again, the sense was we needed to submit for all of these so that if we need to use them, we've got that permission. I'll stop there and take questions.
Thanks, Nathan. Mr. Suggs, I have a friend that sent me a little text message, so I've got the answer to your question about how much money is going out to post-secondary. So of all the monies coming in, 9.8% goes to the governor, 43.9% goes to K-12, and 46.3% goes to IHL.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, next, I wanted to give you a quick update. We have done some really neat things to the Mississippi Succeeds report card. And so briefly, I wanted John Craman to bring you up to speed because this is a brand new aspect of the report card that has gone live. So John?
Sure, thank you, Dr. Wright. So members of the board, we were prepared last month, you may recall, to discuss the new feature of the Mississippi Succeeds report card. But while we delayed the item on the agenda, we did actually release the new feature. It is called Outcomes for High School Graduates, and it is listed on the Mississippi Succeeds report card under Other Measures. This is the first time we've used data from our state longitudinal data system at NSPARC, as well as incorporating National Student Clearinghouse data in our report card. The outcomes that we're talking about are regarding employment, post-secondary enrollment. That includes not only the Mississippi public colleges and universities, but also because of the National Student Clearinghouse data for Mississippi private colleges and universities, as well as out of state. The outcomes also include first-year performance, such as GPA, credit accumulation, course or program enrollment, as well as the ultimate outcomes for degree attainment. We're pretty excited about this, and we framed the data and presented it in the form of questions such as how soon do graduates enroll in college or university, where are they enrolling, which fields are graduates studying, what are graduates preparing, how are graduates preparing for the workforce, how do graduates perform in their first year of college or university, and what are the long-term academic outcomes of graduates. And so these questions lead you through a discussion, if you will, with yourself or with your family or with your school regarding the performance. And it's broken down by not only the state level, but also at the district and school level. Another sort of part of this discussion, though, is not only sort of our excitement about the data we're releasing, but also some of the limitations of the data. This is our first attempt at this. So the data are broken into cohorts, and so the further into the future you're looking, the older the data are, meaning that we don't have outcomes in terms of college degree attainment for kids who just graduated from high school, but we go back several years to an earlier cohort, as well as we don't have every single outcome. So for military enlistment and so forth, there are a number of different, or out-of-state employment, there are a number of different limitations that we do have, but most of the kids are really reflected in this in these data. Next steps, we're working with the SLDS governing board and NSPARC to begin to move towards student-level data, which will help us really begin to better understand the impact of specific high school preparation for the success factors after graduation. But we're really excited about this, and we hope you have a chance to take a look at it. It's available now, and we released it shortly after the March board meeting. And happy to answer any questions if you have any. Thanks.
Thanks, John. I know John's team's been working really hard on that, and there's a few other features that we're working on, but it's exciting that we're finally going to be able to see some of these results of, when our kids leave us, then what, right? And it can better inform, obviously, what we're doing in K-12. The last thing I want to say before I turn this over to Dr. Dean, the reason I had Nathan go through all of those, the districts are going to have a lot of flexibility, but they're also going to have a lot of money on their hands. They're going to have a longer period of time to spend the money that they currently have. They're going to have an influx of the CARES Act money. And then in July 1, they've got their brand new federal dollars. So this is going to be a time where they have a lot of funds on hand And it's going to be so very important that we spend this in a very thoughtful way. So that's one of the reasons that we're preparing some of the guidance documents that we have to try and guide them through what it is that they need, so that when this does occur again, more districts will be able to provide a high quality distance learning program. So Chairman, I'm going to turn this back over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Wright. And I just echo those last comments. I think they're really, really important. Not only will there be a lot of financial opportunity to do some of the things that we've thought about, we strategized around, but you know, my talking point has been disruption can lead to innovation. But that requires leadership, and it requires really forward-leaning thinking, and that, you know, it's not going to happen on its own. And we've said so many times, we know that there are districts that really lean forward and get it and do things that are, you know, outside the box and, you know, don't need a lot of guidance. And then there's other districts that, you know, probably need a little bit help. So I'm glad to hear that the department is trying to encapsulate all that's going on and share that across the districts. I really hope that on the back end of this, the way that we do education looks different. It's better. It's more serving of our boys and girls in public schools in this state. And if we don't take advantage of this opportunity, then shame on all of us, because it's a huge opportunity. Yes, it's a challenge. Yes, we're, you know, inconvenienced. That's kind of not the best word, but the realities are on the backside of this, we could do amazing things if we put our mind to it. The money's not necessarily the concern. We can take care of the policy. We can take care of the laws. It requires leadership. So thank you for those comments. I can't stress that enough. I'll also say I've only got 2 comments. One, just heap tons of praises on Dr. Wright and her team, the executive leadership team, for the past, I don't know, I don't even know what today is, for the past 4 weeks or so. We've talked literally every single day, nights and weekends. I think we only skipped Easter, but we did talk on Good Friday, and have been in constant communication with the governor's office, with the U.S. Department of Ed. We've been, you know, talking and ensuring that we're trying to think together through all the possibilities. And I just want to, you know, again, acknowledge the work that she's done without stop, including weekends, after 5, before 8. And I just want to take a minute to acknowledge that. The last thing I'll say is Governor Reeves has appointed me to a new committee. It's called the Commission for Economic Recovery. The name kind of describes what its purpose is. Our first call is tomorrow at 11, and I'll learn a lot more. But in the discussions that were had inviting me to serve, it was going to be around, you know, how do we position all of education to be in that better position at the end of this, so that we're taking advantage of those opportunities that you previously heard of. So I can assure you that is my intent, and my, you know, hyper-focused point of being on this commission is, you know, how can we make K-12 education better as a result of all this? Because God forbid we ever have to go through this again, but, you know, you never know. So with that, I'll end my report. And next on our agenda is the report of our student representatives. And sadly, this is Shelby Dean's last board meeting. And so she, I think, is present to present to us some of her final remarks and to tell us about some of the experiences she had as our very first student representative. Ms. Dean.
Okay, so I've just got a few things to say, all good things. So my term as senior student representative has been a journey of personal growth. It's taught me the value of diligent preparation for important meetings, to never be afraid to ask questions, and how to stand out and stand up for my opinions on decisions. Although reading policy was very hard to do to begin with, I've adapted and can now more effectively read informational text. At the beginning of my term, I thought I wanted to pursue a career as a high school teacher. I felt that the impact that a classroom can have on a single student is gigantic. Not only has this position taught me the background preparation that goes into a singular classroom setting, but also how and why a school district operates as it does. My time in this position has solidified the notion that teaching is what I'm called to do. Unfortunately, my term has only been a year in duration. If I'm being honest, it took from the first meeting in June of 2019 to around January of 2020 until I felt completely comfortable commenting and talking, mainly because of my introverted tendencies. Going forth, it's good that every elected student will have 2 full years to fulfill their terms so that they're given time to soak in and learn everything and become comfortable sharing their opinions. The Student Advisory Council was a great way to better connect Mississippi students to Omar and I as representatives and to the rest of the board. I've met so many amazing fellow students as a part of the Student Advisory Council that I never would have met otherwise. I always got such a good feeling at meetings because I was surrounded by people my age that shared the passion for education that I also had. It was a beautiful experience, and I hope to see the Student Advisory Council continue to grow and flourish. Creating the report of the student representatives on the agenda for regular board meetings was also an outstanding way to get student representatives involved in the conversation. I hope that from here, there can be more work on the social media platforms that Omar and I started. Because most students my age are glued to social media, I feel that having platforms centered toward Mississippi students will give us immediate ways to get feedback and come closer in touch with them. And I wish the best of luck to the upcoming junior representative. I would like to thank you all for letting me be a part of such a vital role as decision makers for education in the state of Mississippi, especially to Miss Donna, Miss Heather, and Miss Sonia. They were the first people from MDE that I met, and they all exemplify a love for helping others. I'd also like to thank Miss Altman and Dr. Kelly, because as the first board members I got to meet during the interview process, they were really great listeners and somehow managed to make a very nervous girl feel comfortable and blessed to be speaking with them. Additionally, thank you to all of the board members for sharing parts of your life with me and for being role models of what leaders should be like in our state. And finally, thank you to all of the MDE staff that have helped me in getting set up for the position, making sure I was always taken care of and that I never felt misunderstood. Every person that I've met at MDE has been friendly, genuine, and selfless, and I truly thank you all. Oh, I'm gonna get emotional. Okay, thank you.
I think I ought to give her a round of applause for that one. I don't know. That was awesome. Shelby, thank you so much for those comments, and thank you for your service to the state and representing the students across the state. Your voice has been tremendous, and being the first is always hard. I think you blazed a trail that Omar and those that will follow have some big shoes to fill, and we wish you the best, and definitely hope you will keep us apprised of your progress. I'm sure you get asked this 10 times a day, but I'm going to ask it. Got plans yet? Have you got anything settled, or still making those decisions?
Yes, I made this decision like a few weeks ago. Next year, I'm going to be attending Mississippi College, and I'm going to be studying secondary math and physics education. And I also get to run track and cross country, so I'm going to have the full college experience. I'm very excited and blessed.
Outstanding. That's great to hear that you're going to stay in Mississippi and stay close. And I'm friends with President Blake Thompson, and I know that he's thrilled to have such a talent on his campus. He's doing fabulous things there. That is a university or a college that's going to do amazing things during the next several years. So congratulations on that decision. Omar, I know you're on the phone. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. Any updates or comments from you before we move on?
Not really many updates. I've just been at home the past couple weeks since our last meeting, doing schoolwork and just keeping up with friends. All I can say is I'm sad to see Shelby go. She's been a role model. I couldn't imagine anyone better to help me through getting through my first year of this position. And that's really all I have to say. I'm just going to miss the best senior representative I think MDE will ever have.
Thank you for those comments. Appreciate you, Omar. And if we don't talk to you again, have a great summer and make the most of what we have. And we look forward to your continued counsel into the coming year. Okay, I will move us along into our formal part of the agenda, our discussion and approval of board items. Item number 1 is an action item to approve by the State Board of Education the suspension strict compliance with Mississippi Code 372151 for the 2019-2020 school year following Governor Tate Reeves' proclamation of a state of emergency as a result of the impact of COVID-19 on school districts during the spring of 2020. I don't have Dr. Oakley. I think that's your action item.
Yes, sir. I will tee up the first 4 items. So this is specific to some of the requirements of early learning collaboratives. The collaboratives are set forth in Mississippi Code, as you mentioned, and we are bringing forward for your consideration in your table on your backup to your item, page 2, 2 different issues. One of these, within the statute, there's a requirement that the department evaluate the effectiveness of each early childhood collaborative and each pre-K provider. And then we also shall adopt a minimum rate of readiness that each pre-K provider in these collaboratives must meet in order to remain eligible for the collaborative funds. Given that we do not have the ability to administer an end-of-year assessment to those students and complete that effectiveness evaluation, we cannot maintain strict compliance with that portion of the law. So we are bringing forward a recommendation that we suspend the required effectiveness evaluation plan for the 1920 school year and that grantees remain eligible for their funding for the 2021 school year. The second piece of this item that we're bringing forward is connected to the requirement in the law that these instructional programs and the collaboratives serve students in a half-time setting no less than 540 hours or in a full-time setting no less than 1,080 hours. Given that they are not in school each day on site this last quarter of the school year, we are bringing forward a recommendation that the department be continued to allow reimbursement for these collaboratives at the full-time and part-time rate, recognizing that districts, just as with their K-12 students, with their pre-K students, are trying to deliver learning at home experiences to these students, resources and materials for families. And so we would waive that requirement for the seat time instructional hours to award these grants for the 1920 school year until classes resume following the state of emergency. Be glad to take any questions.
Any questions from any board members? Okay, hearing none, under the Office of Chief Academic Officer, do I have a motion to approve item 1?
Karen Elam, so moved.
This is Sean. I'll second.
I have a motion with the second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We'll move on to action item 2. Approval by State Board of Education to suspend strict compliance with Mississippi Code annotated section 37173.1 for the 2019-2020 school year following Governor Tate Reeves' proclamation of a state of emergency as a result of the impact of COVID-19 on school districts during the spring of 2020 in accordance with Mississippi Code section 3315.31, 11, B9, and 1511C1. Dr. Oakley.
Thank you. Item 2 and item 3 are very much alike, 2 different scholarships, but similar kind of language within the law. Item 2 is the dyslexia therapy scholarship, and within that code section, as you look in your backup, there is a requirement that the department makes these payments in 12 equal installments after we verify acceptance of admission, and we make subsequent payments upon verification of continued enrollment for these students enrolled in a state-accredited non-public school that's providing dyslexia therapy services. Also in the law, though, there is language that these programs, to be eligible to participate, must maintain a physical location in the state where scholarship students regularly attend classes. We're requesting that we suspend the requirement for continued attendance at a physical school location from March 16th until schools resume following the state of emergency. Similar to the other previous issue and to the public school setting, we've got schools that are offering services, but they're not able to do it in a physical location. Be glad to take any questions. Dr. Dean, I think you're muted.
Whatever I said was brilliant, I promise. Under the Office of Chief Academic Officer, do I have a motion to approve item 2?
John Kelly, I move approval of item 2.
Buddy Bailey, second.
Okay, there's a motion with the second. Any further discussion? Hear none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we'll move to action item 3. Approval by the State Board of Education to suspend strict compliance with Mississippi Code Section 37175-1 for the 2019-2020 school year following Governor Tate Reeves' proclamation, state of emergency as a result of the impact of COVID-19 on school districts during the spring of 2020 in accordance with the previously stated Mississippi Code. Dr. Oakley.
Item 3 is, again, one of the scholarship programs that we operate here at the Department of Ed. This is the Nate Rogers Speech Language Therapy Scholarship. And this law also requires, if you look in the backup, that the schools serving these students maintain a physical location in the state where these students regularly attend classes. We're requesting suspension of the requirement for continued attendance at a physical school location from March 16th until classes resume so that these students remain eligible for the scholarship. Be glad to take any questions.
Any questions from the board? Okay, hear none. Do I have a motion under the Office of Chief Academic Officer to approve item 3?
Rosemary Altman, so moved.
Do I have a
Brittany
second?
Ross, second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? Hear none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We'll move to action item 4, approval by the State Board of Ed to suspend specific policies and process standards in Mississippi Administrative Code 7-24, Mississippi Public School Accountability Standards 2019 for the 2019-2020 school year following Governor Tate Reeves' proclamation on school districts during 2020 in accordance with the previously stated Mississippi Code. Dr. Oakley.
Thank you. In item 4, this is similar to the items that we brought forward in March. I believe we told you at that time that as we continue to work through, if we identified other areas within code or within the accountability standards, we would be bringing those back. And these 2 items are such. In your backup, you will see, first of all, a request that we look at process standard 17.2. 17.2 is for our early childhood programs, and we're bringing this forward specific to the pre-kindergarten teachers and teacher assistants. The early learning guidelines require that by August of 2020, 50% of our pre-K teachers, pre-K special ed teachers, and pre-K assistants meet the highly qualified definition or the requirements outlined in the guidelines, and that 100% meet those requirements by August of 2022. We are simply requesting that we delay that timeline by 1 year, given the impact of COVID-19 on our ability to reach out and offer ongoing professional development, both in person and on a large scale through the summer. We would be looking, if you approve this, by August 1st of 2021 to have 50% of the pre-K staff meet the requirement, and by August 1st of 2023 to have all of them meeting that requirement. Be glad to take any questions.
Any questions from the board on this one? Okay, hear none. Please
Then
go
I'll
ahead.
turn over the rest of the presentation to Paula Vanderford.
So briefly, the second page of your backup material is related to process standard 31 for school safety. And what we're asking for is a rule suspension. We currently have a deadline of June 30th for all MCOP grantees, any SROs that are new to a district, or any ongoing SROs that are currently employed for their ongoing professional development that's required. So we're asking, because this is school safety, we're asking that we extend that deadline from June the 30th until August the 1st. And we'll be back to the board in May with some additional options for training. Many of these SROs depend on the annual MASRO conference that's held on the coast. in June, and we don't know if that conference will be held or not. So right now, school safety staff are looking at other ways that the SROs can obtain this training prior to the beginning of the upcoming school year. So we will be bringing forth to you some recommendations to expand the training opportunities, some of which may be virtually next month.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions for either Dr. Vanderford or Dr. Oakley?
Dr. Vanderbilt, this is Sean. Based on the training that they will receive in light of the current situation, how do we make sure it's modern and updated based on the current crisis that we're having, safety schools?
Well, so that is what staff is working on, currently, to ensure there's a standard curriculum that's for the SROs for the 40-hour basic class, and then the SROs that are not employed or that do not receive grant funds, they're required 56 hours. So we're currently looking at that curriculum and also, how to expand that to include what we're currently experiencing with this pandemic.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from board members? Any questions? Okay. Hearing none, under the Office of Chief Accountability Officer and Chief Academic Officer, do I have a motion to approve item number 4?
John
Karen
Kelly,
Elam, so
Chair.
moved.
Move approval of item 4.
We'll call that John with the motion and Dr. Elam with the second. Any further discussion, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, next we've got several contracts to approve. This is Dr. Gavin, approval of MDE contracts. Dr. Gavin.
Okay, good morning. We do, as we approach fiscal year and start preparing for fiscal year 21, we have several contracts coming before the board for renewal. And the first contract is item A, and it's to renew our contract with Tan, Brown, and Ross CPA firm. They're the firm that does the calculation for our MAP, and this is the final year on this contract.
Yeah, we'll just go through each of them and then
Okay.
I'll make a motion. And if as she itemizes them, if you have a question, speak up, at the end of her discussion of each item, please.
Okay, item B is to renew contracts with our school improvement coaches for the upcoming year, and you have a list of all of those vendors that we're awarding that contract to, and again, that is a renewal. Item C is actually a modification to our existing contract with that's for the PERS increase, and it's retro back to June of this fiscal year.
Just a question on that. That's a legislative requirement, correct? They increased PERS contribution?
That is correct. And we did not initially include that increase in our original contract. So this is to include that this $1,000 is for that increase.
It's only for department employees?
It's for any employee that is in the PERS retirement system, even if they're contract workers and they pay into PERS.
I got you. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Item 5D, it is a renewal contract with Borgias Learning for fiscal year 2021.
I do have some questions kind of in general around these assessment contracts, not specific to Voyager, and I have no objection to this contract. I just want to make it a couple of things, clear, because I've gotten questions myself on given that we've waived these assessments. My understanding was that we issued a stop work order on the contract, timely. I don't know exactly when, but how do we deal with this contractually in terms of the funds? Do they, is there something in the contract that says, this is only a 10-year contract or X number of years? Do we add a year? I mean, how do we make whole these vendors that are not being paid because of the current waiver situation?
Well, we do have the stop work order clause in the contract, so we'll realize those savings in this fiscal year. And I think Paula and Jackie and her team are still working on what those actual savings will be, but we'll realize those savings in the current fiscal year. And we'll get into ACT later, but as far as in general, the cost savings will be in the current fiscal year.
Okay.
And they're working on, what that will actually look like, what those savings will be. They're still working with the vendor on those.
Yeah. So, and then that's, I guess, kind of related on the, I recognize this is fiscal 21 that we're voting on, but those prices are already agreed to by contract. So there's no, makeup provision that these vendors were trying. I see some, yeah, no. Go ahead.
Oh, you want to speak to that?
Yes, I'll speak to that. So we're currently, the reason that we don't have all the assessment contracts on today's agenda is because we're currently working with the vendors. So we will realize some reductions in some cases. However, it may be minimal with our other contracts. So any work that we had already accomplished this year, say an assessment that we may not have administered that we could utilize next year, we'll see that cost savings in our FY21 contract. So it's just taking us some time to work through with the vendors what we owe for the current fiscal year, as well as what work that has been done during this current fiscal year that we can use. We will not have to redo, for lack of a better terms, next year.
And just one other point, then we can move on. So just to make it clear, I mean, the timing of this and for this part of the discussion couldn't be worse, because we all know we were right up against the beginning of the assessment period. So these vendors had done a tremendous amount of work. There's X percentage that was done. The tests weren't administered, nor were they graded and disseminated. But there is a lot of work up to that point. So I don't want anyone to get the impression that just because there's no tests, there was no work done. In moving forward, we'll keep a very close eye on what the future of these contracts look like. So thank you for that. That's all the questions I have.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I have a question around the school improvement coaches contract. Someone tell me what this looks like, the services. What do these services look like that these coaches are providing?
So Dr. Kelly, sure, certainly. These coaches are going into our schools that are identified, typically our CSI, our comprehensive support schools. They are working alongside principals to examine classroom instruction. They are working with leadership teams to identify deficit areas and provide support directly to the principals and to build that capacity within the school to address the needs to try to turn around academic performance there. They also provide some virtual coaching support to our ATSI schools and TSI schools. We've got a limited number of these, so they cannot be in every one of the schools we've got identified, but they are providing both face-to-face and virtual support for these school improvement schools.
What really prompted the question, and I really appreciate your explanation of it. I see several two out-of-state addresses. Does that mean these coaches are living in Atlanta and Villa Rica, Georgia? Is that where these folks are from?
So that is their current address, but these folks are providing support here in the state.
Okay, thank you so much.
What's the process for application to that? Is this interview process, several resumes, and we pick the best?
So we'd go through a competitive process. Dr. Gavin, you can speak to it if you want to. You're keyed up, or?
Yeah, that's fine. It is a competitive process. We issue an RFP, and it's open to anyone to apply. There is a scoring process. There's an evaluation team, and the highest ranked are the awardees.
Okay. Any other questions?
Now, this is a renewal, so there was no formal process this time. This is a renewal on the previous year's contract. Okay, item 5E, it's a no-cost contract for the adoption of our health education textbook. So that is a no-cost contract to the state. And that was done through an invitation for bid process. The next item is item 5F. Again, this is a renewal contract with Reading Language Arts Center, Brainspring, and this is year 4 of a 5-year contract. And it was done through an RFP process as well. The next contract up for renewal is item 5G, and it's for Riverside Assessment, and that is for our preschool ages 3 through 5 for IDA. Next contract is item 5H, and this has to do with the deaf and blind school. This is awarded vendor is Prime Care Nursing, and this is year 2 of a 3-year contract. And they provide nursing service to the deaf and blind school. Next item is item 5I, and this is also a vendor. This is for the custodians for the Mississippi School for the Deaf and Blind. Again, this is a renewal contract, year 3 of a 3-year contract. Next item. Scrolling up here. 5J. It's a renewal contract with the Mississippi School for the Deaf and Blind. Also, this is for the bus drivers, and the list of the bus drivers, those awardees are attached as well. Item 5K, it's a renewal of contracts. This is for our monitors. And this is the final year of this contract.
Hey, Dr. Gavin, this is Sean. On the bus drivers, I'm sorry to go backwards. Their rate, has that just been flat over the past few years, or is there a baked in increase each year?
On the bus drivers?
Yes.
I believe,
I believe it was set within the RFA and it's remained steady.
yeah, it's
over
the same, 17,507 per bus driver, and it's been the same all 3 years.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. Item 5L. That's a renewal of our contract with research and curriculum for Mississippi State. And this is I believe this is the 4th year of a 10-year contract. Item 5M is renewal for Renaissance Learning. This is year 8 out of that 10-year contract. Item 5N, this is a renewal of a contract. This is 3 out of, I think this is year 3 out of a 5-year contract. This is the ACT contract for the administration for FY 2021, and we may have to bring this particular item back to the board in the fall because we're still assessed. I don't think we received the file from this fiscal year. So there may be an increase to cover those students that were not tested in this current year. So this current year's cost may be less, but the cost of this contract may go up. But that is yet to be determined. And the last item is item 5.0. This is a modification contract with Cyber Global, and they provide services to our school district as far as network. And this is a modification. I believe that's the last contract.
Can you just help us understand the $75,000 increase on this last one?
Mr. Kramer?
Sure. So the contract that we had originally was going to end in March, or actually ended in March. And so this is to help us continue past the end of the contract, to extend it to give us some time to renew it for the new fiscal year. And then we have, so this is an extra period of time. And so we have since actually drawn back and we're recrafting the scope of work for this support to align with the distance learning needs of the districts that we're starting to kind of gain an awareness and appreciation of. So the amount of money is just to keep the engineers working with the districts as they work through the rest of the fiscal year.
Okay, any questions on any of the previously discussed contracts? Under the Office of Chief Operations Officer, do I have a motion to approve items 5A through O?
Mr. Chairman, John Kelly, I so move.
Buddy Bailey was second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any additional discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item number 6, approval of MDE grant awards. Dr. Gavin.
Okay, item 6A is a modification to our ERR grants. And again, this is kind of a mixed bag of this modification. The actual modification is actually a decrease. We had a decrease in our award amounts for some of our counties, but at the same time, we needed to cover the increase here of for the PERS increase also. And you have the amounts per district that's attached as your backup.
Okay, any questions on 6A? Can I get a motion to approve item 6A, please?
Sean, so moved.
This is Rosemary, second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we're in our consent agenda. All consent items and action items require a vote unless otherwise noted. Consent agenda, the approval of certified personnel due to process policy for Mississippi School of Arts. B, approval of 2020 MERC policies and procedures manual. And C, approval to begin APA to revise State Board Policy Chapter 55, Rule 55-1. Under the consent agenda, do I have a motion to approve items A, B, and C?
So moved. Karen Elam.
All right.
John Kelly, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any additional discussion on consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next, we'll move into the consideration of executive session.
Mr. Chair, Buddy Bailey here. I move the board consider making a closed determination of the need to go into executive session.
There's motion. Is there a second?
Second. Karen Elam.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Shelby and Omar, if you will, please disengage from the Microsoft Teams meeting, and we'll move into our executive session.
Yes, sir.
Heartbreaking, I know.
Dr. Dean, if you'll let me know when you're
You're
Okay.
and you're
Okay, you're on. Aaron, you're live.
Okay. The board has voted to go into executive session for discussion of personnel matters in accordance with Mississippi Code annotated section 2541(7)(4)(a) and K related to the approval of the appointment of an Education Bureau Director 2 to serve as Director of Project Management within the Office of Technology and Strategic Services.
We're live again.
all righty. So during our executive session, we moved for approval of the appointment of Ed Bureau Director 2 to serve as the Director of Project Management within the Office of Technology, Mr. Eric Shirley. All right. We are out. Let's see. Okay. Is Shelby and Omar back with us yet?
Shelby
I'm
is
here.
present.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank y'all. Okay, any report on any meetings attended? That's a trick question. Did you do it by Zoom or Microsoft Teams? All right, any no need for approval of future meetings, any other business?
What's for lunch?
It's virtual. May board meeting will be held on May 21st, 2020, starting at 10 a.m. Before the motion to adjourn, appreciate your patience and your willingness to continue the business of the people doing it this way. I think it was, went perfectly smooth. So thank you again for being flexible. Shelby, we'll we'll miss you, but keep in touch. And I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Karen Elam.
Okay, there's
So much, Shelby.
a second.
Mr. Rosemary, second.
Okay, there's a motion with the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 11:13. Thank y'all.